Thank you.
It is October 1st. That means September's officially over. Remember, it's the month we were supposed to see change in Iraq. It's now come and gone with no real change in policy. Many Republicans told us that when back-to-school sales started, their unwavering support for the seemingly never-ending war could come to an end. And the president kept saying, just wait till September. But now in October, it sure feels like it may have just been a stall tactic to keep the war going.
September morn.
For certain, by September, when we face the full $500 billion appropriation bill, there is a very difficult time ahead unless we can see light at the end of the tunnel.
September morning still can make me feel that way.
I believe Iraq's problems will require a long-term effort. There are no easy answers or quick solutions.
Clearly, no one would expect us to pursue a plan that wasn't working, and so that September time frame is one that's important, and we've been talking about it as an important time frame.
And look how far we've come, so far from where we used to be.
And though we both believe this effort can succeed, it will take time.
September morning still can make me feel that way.
If we do not see this administration take some initiatives to make some changes, significant strategic policy changes over the next 90 days, then of course it will be forced on them.
Really? Look, Hagel's been a straight shooter on this, but what were the changes? Where's the light? September's gone. Nothing's changed. In retrospect, isn't it fair to say September never meant anything? Everyone knew that General Petraeus and U.S. Ambassador Ryan Crocker would come in and say there was some progress, we need more time. And so now we find ourselves in October with no real change. Still with us is Rachel Maddow and Pat Buchanan. I mean, Pat, were we just snookered?
No, I don't think so, Dan. Clearly the president had an objective here, and he brought General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker back, and he frankly succeeded, and he did give something. He said we're going to have 5,000 troops out in December, and the surge ends in April. 30,000 more will be withdrawn. That was satisfactory to, if you will, the northern, more moderate Republicans. And so having those votes, the Democrats could not get 60 votes to impose their deadlines, and they certainly can't get 67 to override a veto.
That to me translates into we got snookered, because you're talking about the troops, all of the troops that served as the surge, right? You're saying a tiny group of that surge, those additional troops, get pulled back, and then hopefully by next summer the rest of the troops that were part of the surge will get them back, meaning we're back to the point we were at before.
What I'm saying, Dan, is if you believe that Bush was going to pull all these troops out of Iraq, you snookered yourself.
All right. Well, here, Rachel, the Washington Post, all right, May 8th, 2007, said, with September looking increasingly like a decisive deadline. September could be key deadline in war, was the headline. Was the media and others just fooled?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people were willing to hear that there was going to be some sort of change, in the same way that we've heard almost from the very beginning of the war that some magical 6-month distance would be the amount of time it would take to see if things were working. There is one thing that I think has started to change this September, and that is that instead of trying to define the U.S. occupation as a success in Iraq, I think they're getting a little softer on that, and they instead are now moving to keeping the war going by talking about how scary it would be for us to leave.
Oh, yeah, no, look, and we've done a segment on this show about the changing definitions of the goalpost, the shifting goalposts, etc. But Pat, let me read you. This is Norm Coleman, May 8th. There is a sense that by September, you've got to see real action on the part of the Iraqis. I think everybody knows that. I really do. And then Gordon Smith, same day, May 8th. Many of my Republican colleagues have been promised they'll get a straight story on the surge by September. I won't be the only Republican demanding a change in our disposition of troops in Iraq. At that point, that's very clear to me. I mean, were these people being dishonest, or are they just accepting of this shifting of the goalposts?
I think they're accepting in this sense. The president gave them something, the 5,000, the end of the surge, and then he in effect said what Rachel is saying, look, You draw down these troops too fast, and we will have a cataclysm there and a humanitarian catastrophe.
No, he said if you draw, Pat, well, he said if you draw down these troops ever, if we ever leave, that's when they started talking about the Korea
I think the point is the political argument succeeded with these fellas. They were given this option or this one, support me or this is where it's going. And they said, okay,
Pat,
we don't like it, we're with you.
Let me ask you to dig back in your memory a little bit. When they made that argument at the end of Vietnam, right, people were still saying it. If we pull out, it's going to be a major disaster, et cetera. Politically, how did they overcome that?
Well, you mean after Vietnam?
Yeah.
Well, Vietnam was, I mean, you got 1 million dead Cambodians, hundreds of thousands dead Vietnamese. It was a disaster for the United States. The Soviets moved in Africa, in Angola, in Mozambique, in Grenada, and Nicaragua. Look, I was there, Dan.
No, that's why I'm asking.
It was not good days. That's why Ronald Reagan is president.
But this president is still claiming that it's sort of like the cause and effect, that the reason everything went so badly is because we got out of Vietnam.
You're right. No, the difference here is the decision about whether or not we believe that peace is better served by more war or by ending the war. And right now, just like at the end of Vietnam, and just like Pat is still arguing, and just like we're arguing now in the Senate and everywhere else, this idea that there will be so much more war if we end this war.
But
we can't possibly get to peace by ending the war. We have to decide if that's bunk or not.
Do you want the peace of Cambodia and Iraq?
Pat, I think that
1 million dead.
Pat,
in the first year of peace, 1 million dead.
But here's the question, Pat. Had we stayed, do you think that things would have been better off? Do you think that the Vietnam War was too short?
No, I think we would have been better off if Congress hadn't cut off aid to the South Vietnamese and let the North overrun them.
If only we'd had cable back then. We could have had this debate back then. But Pat was having it behind the scenes. Rachel Maddow and Pat Buchanan, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.